Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jasodanandana Brajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Vishvad Paramhamsa Parivraj Vicharja Stotara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Sabai Charanaravindra Bhakta Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. We go to the Lila Amrita, I'm sure. I hope.
Prabhu, I'm reading the Lilamrita now. Is it okay for you?
Yes, absolutely good. Thank you.
Prabhupada saw George as a nice young boy and a devotee of Krishna. According to Bhagavatam, no matter what a person may be materially, if he is a non-devotee and never utters the holy name of God, he cannot possess any good qualities. Many Swamis and yogis in India, even some who considered themselves Vaishnavas, had no faith in or understanding of the holy name of Krishna. But George liked to chant Hare Krishna, and he had put the holy name of Krishna in his songs, which were tremendously popular all over the world. So he was serving Krishna through his music, and that made all the difference. Mr. George Harrison appears to be a very intelligent boy, and he is, by the grace of Krishna, fortunate also. On the first day, he came to see me along with John Lennon, and we had talks about 2 hours. He wanted to talk with me more, but he has now gone to his sick mother in Liverpool. Prabhupada also saw George as a rich man, and Lord Chaitanya had strictly instructed devotees in the renounced order not to mix with worldly man. But Lord Chaitanya had also taught that a devotee should accept any favorable opportunity for propagating Krishna consciousness. If this boy cooperates with our movement, it will be very nice impetus, for after all, he is a moneyed man. These moneyed men have to be very cautiously dealt with in spiritual life. We have to sometimes deal with some on account of preaching work. Otherwise, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has strictly restricted to mix with them for Krishna conscious people. But we get instruction from Rupa Goswami that whatever opportunity is favorable for pushing on Krishna consciousness, we should accept. Hare Krishna. So, Prabhu, you can start.
Hold on 1 second. I'm just trying to change the view. Okay. Okay, doke. Oops. Oops. Oops.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, do you want me to share the screen for you?
I'm not sure. What does that mean?
The screen will appear and you can read from there on this.
Oh, okay. Let's try that.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm not sure what I've got here now. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I've done it again. View. Where? Are you still there?
Yeah, yes, Prabhu. Can you see
Sorry,
that?
I've just lost. I don't know the screen. I kind of somehow or other have got. Oh boy, escape. I don't know. Yeah, I can't see. I'm out of the loop here. I can't see anything.
Can you see the verse on the screen, Prabhu?
No, I can't see a thing. Um, I thought it was all working well, but I, Hare Krishna. The today's subject is about the mind, and it's like a zoo at the moment. Alt tab. I wonder if it's going to come up. Yes, somehow. Okay, so everything you touch moves things. Okay, I've got some kind of screen. Okay, maybe that'll have to do. Okay, I'll just work with that. So sorry, Prabhu, Krishna. So what are we? Where are we up to?
So you can start from the verse. So if you want me, I can share the screen, Prabhu, or you can read yourself if you like from the book, whatever is convenient for you.
Okay. Whatever. I don't know. I'll read from the book. I've got the book in
Okay, that's
front.
fine, Prabhu. Please continue.
So we'll see if that see if that works. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 6, text number 2, the activities of Lord Rishabhadev. Again, it's in prose. Rishiruvacha Satyam Uktam Kint Vihava Ekena Manasodha Vishrambham Anavashtanasya Satha Kirata Iva Sangachante. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Srila Sukadev Goswami replied, My dear king, you have spoken correctly. What did he say? King Pariksit said, he asked Sukadev Goswami, My dear Lord, for those who are completely pure in heart, knowledge is attained by the practice of bhakti yoga, and attachment for fruitive activity is completely burned to ashes. For such people, the powers of mystic yoga automatically arise. They do not cause distress. Why then did Rishabhadev neglect them? You have spoken correctly, Sukadeva Goswami said. However, after capturing animals, a cunning hunter does not put faith in them, for they might run away. Similarly, those who are advanced in spiritual life do not put faith in the mind. Indeed, they always remain vigilant and watch the mind's action. Srila Prabhupada's purport. In Bhagavad Gita 18:5, Lord Krishna says, Yagna dana tapa karam na tyajyam karyam eva tat jnano dhanam tapaschaiva pavanani manishanam. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up, but should be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. Even one who has renounced the world and has taken sannyas should not renounce chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Renunciation does not mean that one has to renounce Sankirtan Yagya. Similarly, one should not renounce charity or tapasya. The yoga system for control of the mind and senses must be strictly followed. Lord Rishabhadev showed how severe types of tapasya could be performed, and he set an example for all others. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual masters forcing me to open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge, offer my humble obeisances unto his lotus feet. Translation once more. Srila Sukadeva Goswami replied, My dear king, you have spoken correctly. However, after capturing animals, a cunning hunter does not put faith in them, for they might run away. Similarly, those who are advanced in spiritual life do not put faith in the mind. Indeed, they always remain vigilant and watch the mind's action. I'm reminded of a song that one of our devotees who passed away many years back now, he chained by the shackles of the mind, it was called. Parvati was his name. And Parvati Prabhu wrote many beautiful songs, really nice, enlivening songs in the English language to help people to understand Krishna consciousness. And it used to reverberate when it said, it used to sing, chained by the shackles of the mind. It used to, it made that vibrating kind of sound. So the mind, Srila Prabhupada speaks about, he says in the Bhagavad Gita, success in the yoga system more or less depends on the ability to control the mind. So if we look through the Bhagavad Gita, we'll find, and Srimad Bhagavatam, the control of the mind is a very regular discussion point. Mabhaivam sa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manasa stani indriyani prakriti stani karshati. The living entities in this world are my eternal fragmental parts, and due to conditioned life, they find themselves struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So the mind is the sixth sense, the five senses plus the mind. So the mind is the pivotal point where the essential inputs are received, and the mind's business is accepting and rejecting whatever the senses are giving. So that's the business of the mind. And therefore we find it's always flickering. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna, pramati balavadritam, tasyaham nigraham manye, vayureva chatuskritam. Trying to control the mind, as advised by Krishna, Arjuna said, I think it is more difficult than trying to control the wind. So it's a very strong statement. It's like, can't do it. It's too difficult. And Krishna replies, Ahamsaya Mahabaho, mighty armed Arjuna. It is undoubtedly very difficult to control the mind. So Krishna agrees with Arjuna. But he says, so that position of being surrounded by the senses and the mind, the living entity is struggling this situation. But Krishna says it's undoubtedly very difficult, but it's possible. It's possible by what? By constant practice and detachment. So this constant practice, also in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, I think it's third canto, Devahuti is inquiring, how is it possible to extricate ourselves from this entanglement of material life? It seems that the way it is created is so perfectly done that the living entity thinks himself to be the body, thinks himself to be a part of this manifestation of the material world, and to come out of that illusory concept is practical. I can't see, it's impossible. So it's similar to Arjuna's statement. Huh? So Lord Rishabh, Lord Kapila replies to his mother 3 verses on and says, yeah, it is only, it's possible by by repeatedly hearing. So so again, this point of repeatedly, constantly, nityam, always, always. So that's the actual way. Um, so is undoubtedly difficult, but it is by constant practice and by detachment. So detaching ourselves from the material entanglement in so many different varieties and ways, and that is a constant practice for controlling the mind. We shouldn't make friends with the mind. Lord Rishabhadev is saying, yes, or should we say Sukadev Goswami, that that we should not, even though one may feel we really shouldn't have that problem. We're not so advanced in spiritual life. Lord Rishabhadev was, but even Lord Rishabhadev, trying to show the example, was showing that even if you are very advanced, the, that there's always a chance of difficulty. And pretty much the Srimad Bhagavatam shows greatly advanced personalities, far superior to ourselves. And sometimes we hear about different demigods, we hear about different sadhus, different rishis, yogis, of falling victim to the allurements of the material world, usually in the form of the opposite sex. That is the big allurement. That's the pleasure that's on offer, where one can think oneself to be an independent enjoyer. So many times this happens. And the Bhagavatam is showing us it's in so many ways. It's just a little bit like if you have a motor accident. This is a strange idea, but if you have a motor accident, I've found I haven't had too many recently, but especially in the younger times, this is maybe interesting. In the younger times, different, yeah, experience, and you think, well, I'll never do that again. I made a mistake here, or this happened, and I wasn't alert to it, and this happened, and that's why an accident happens, and therefore, um, we think we won't make that mistake again. But guess what? Another set of circumstances will happen, and you think, oh gosh, the last time it was like this, and I'm not going to do that one again. But guess what? Here's another accident. You think, wow, how did that happen? I was prepared for this and prepared for that, and I had it together to drive this way, and I'm very attentive. But then another accident happened unexpectedly from the rear, or from the side, or from front, or wherever it may come. So the Bhagavatam is filled with the different stories of how Maya snares one in different ways, allures one, bewilders one, call it what you may, and that one can be caught in the trap of the hunter. So um, only by hearing for a long time. So that is the position. I've mentioned many times, Srila Prabhupada said, and again, next week I'm supposed to go over to Melbourne for a little while. It's the 50th anniversary for the Melbourne temple, so my wife and I are going to spend some time there and travel a little bit in Australia. And you forget all the ways. Sorry, I'm just got caught in my brain. That's the mind. And my mind just wandered. I went to Australia there, and then the next thing I'm thinking, well, what was that got to do with what I was speaking about? So the mind is a bit like that. So that's amazing. I'm trying to catch a train of thought, and it jumped. And I'm looking now at the Bhagavatam, but that's the. So there you go. That's a great example of the mind. Watch the mind's action. It can always jump here and there. One must be vigilant to watch the mind's action. Um, Pasha. So yes, so the Bhagavatam then is giving all these varieties of happenings which show how important it is to learn the process of controlling the mind. And tapasya is described here. Lord Rishabhadev showed how severe types of tapasya could be performed, and he set an example for all others. Tapodevyam putraka yena satvam sudyed yasmad brahma sokyam tvanantam. If we want to experience the spiritual pleasure, then we have to perform some tapasya, the tapasya to detach ourselves from the material pleasures. We know that the taste for sense objects remains, but we have to experience that higher taste. But the flow of desires are coming. Apuryamana machala pratistam samudramapa pravashanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravashanti sharvesha shantam apnuti kama. Person who's not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever filled but always remains still, can alone achieve peace, not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So Vaisheshika Prabhu explains very nicely that say it's just like a conveyor belt, the flow, it's like a river, as the verse itself states. So you could liken it to a conveyor belt that's just churning out desires, another desire, another desire. So these things are continuing. And if we think, oh, let me satisfy this desire, then guess what? There'll be another desire coming off the conveyor belt. And then there's this one and that one. So the mind is constantly gaining the impulse of whatever one is engaged in. That's why one has to be very vigilant. The tortoise, Bhagavad Gita explains, can reveal its senses or can retract the senses within the shell. So that is an example also. Lord Rishabhadev was able to travel everywhere and be completely unaffected by the difficulties placed upon him by other living entities who saw him as just being a dumb man and didn't understand his advanced state of consciousness. So he was so controlled that he could move, wandering naked and disheveled and with no regard for anything of the material world. So we certainly can't imitate. There's a difference in following in the footsteps and imitation, but we can gain inspiration. And this is the way of the whole process of Krishna consciousness, is we have to look to the Shastra to gain the basic principle, the concepts of what is the highest level, and then be able to apply it in our own lives. So we cannot, we hear the stories of Kadama Muni providing for his wife, and Prabhupada in one purport says, an ordinary lady should not expect so many things from her husband. So it's kind of a good one to say. You shouldn't expect that you're going to gain an aerial mansion. But we can take the example that according to the time and the place and the circumstances, then all facilities should be given according to one's capacity. And Kadama Muni thought, okay, let's do this. If we're going to do this, let's do it in a very grand way. So he had aerial mansion that could travel through to different planets and so on, and so many servants and things. So we can then try to gain the reference from Shastra, how to act. We have to become first-class men. We may not become Lord Ramachandra, we may not be Kadama Muni, but the idea is that we have to develop the good qualities according to our capacity and ability. We can't jump too far. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has quoted that example of the rungs of the ladder. So if you're on the bottom rung of the ladder and you think that you can jump to the top of the ladder, most likely that's going to be problematic. But you may step to the next and the next, and when one is steady on that rung, can move forward. So that's the gradual process of developing from the neophyte stage to the madhyam stage to the uttam stage, from the neophyte devotee to the second class devotee to the first class devotee. And if we do it, Srila Prabhupada says in another place that one will certainly come to the first class platform. But the the business is to continue, uh, to start and don't stop. That's how the process works. Mm. So where were we now? Just going back to this purport. There's so many verses I thought of. The ability to control the mind, Chanchalam Samsa, yeah. One verse that I chant regularly when I'm chanting Hare Krishna is Yato Yato Nischalati. That verse is 626. Yato Yato Nischalati, Manas Chanchalam Astiram. Please excuse me, I should be able to rattle these verses off, but my mind is all over the place. 622, 622, I think it is. See if we can find it easily. Six. Chanchalam. I chant it every morning, but Yato Yato Nischalati Manas Chanchalam Astiham. No, can't get it. 626. Yato Yato Nischalati Manas Chanchalam Astiram. Tatastato Niyam Yaitat Atmani Eva Vasamnayet. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under control of the self. So it's not unexpected. That is the business of the mind. That's the what would you say? The Sanatan Dharma, the eternal constitutional position of the mind. It's simply accepting and rejecting things that are favorable for sense gratification, unfortunately, because it's the sixth sense. So the mind is not a really good friend until it is completely controlled. And even then, we see Lord Rishabhadev's example, even when it is fully controlled, he says you should be very careful to be attentive. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Prabhupada explains like that too, that we should beat the mind with shoes 100 times and beat the mind again with broomstick 100 times. So, yeah, so that's the more or less depends on this ability to control the mind. And this practice is going on. And then we need to help all the other parts of the process of devotional service. We have to surround ourselves with good associations so that the mind, again, my mind's jumping to find where to go here. Just going to, again, back to Vinod Thakur, he says the four things that are required, and one of them is to do with the mind. Unless we're Paramahamsa, which is relevant, I suppose, Rishabhadev is the Paramahamsa. So unless we're Paramahamsa, we have to look after four aspects. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that first the body has to be kept in a sound condition. And again, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that that is the most important thing, to make sure the health is okay, because without the health, you won't be able to sit peacefully and chant Hare Krishna. It'll be very, very difficult. So the body to be in proper condition. And I've mentioned again many times, that doesn't mean that we just focus on the body. That's not at all what is being said. But in order to be able to chant Hare Krishna, to execute devotional service properly, then the body being in a sound condition is priority. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying like that, the body must be kept healthy. Then there has to be proper stimulus for the mind. Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the Shri Chaitanya Shikshamrita. There has to be proper stimulus for the mind so that it is able to be inspired, be enthused, feel, yes, I'm doing the right thing by bringing these different activities to the mind and body. Then I will then the mind's satisfied if it's proper. So that will be different for each person. It will be different for the different varnas and ashrams, and it will be certainly, again, everything is within those ashrams and varnas. Each person is an individual. So we have to search like that to find proper service, proper engagement in devotional service that will inspire the mind. Yes, I like to do this. I can do this. I like that. Again, it's a whole big subject, how to exactly do that. But that is required that the mind has to be given proper engagement so that it is satisfied. Then one should be socially properly situated. So proper ashram, one has to be in the right ashram and be engaged in the right dharma uh, or swadharma, the occupational activities. So we're able to be situated like that. Then the main of the four, then the fourth is the sadhana, is the study of Shastra, the activities of devotional service. So if the body's in good condition, the mind has engagement in practical activities where one can engage in the devotional service and one is socially properly situated, there's no great disturbance there, then one is able to execute the proper sadhana bhakti so that one can make steady progress on that path. So Lord Rishabhadev is there giving his example, and also there is the example of um, Ambarish Maharaj. So Ambaraj, where was that verse? Please give me that one where we had Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo. That is the 245. I'll just read that 245. There's two verses. This is the ninth canto. Srimad Bhagavatam, Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo, Pachamsi Vaikuntha Gunanuvarnane, Karo Harer Mandira Marjanadishu, Shrutim Chakraychuta Satkatodaye. Maharaj Ambarish always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna, his words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. And in the next verse, Maharaj Ambarish engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temples, and Krishna's places like Mathura and Brindavan. He engaged his sense of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of tulsi offered to the Lord. And he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasada. Maharaj Ambarish engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord, his head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaj Ambarish never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service in various engagements related to the Lord. This is the way to increase attachment for the Lord, and and be completely free from all material desires. So Sukadev Goswami instructing Maharaj Pariksit. So it's such a beautiful presentation of Maharaj Ambarish, his mind, always engaged in meditating. His activities are always connected to the Lord. So that is our process of devotional service. Yat karoshi yad yashnasi yad jahoshi dadasi yat tapashasi kunti yat tat karushvamadarpanam. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, all austerities that you perform should be done as an offering unto me. From the very beginning, when we jump out of bed, we should hit the ground and we offer our obeisances to our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, and all the great acharyas, all the great representatives, past, present, and future, who will represent Krishna. So we're in that mood from the very beginning. And then what to do? What is next? Go and clean. Why? Because we need to go and get clean so that we can come before Krishna and chant Hare Krishna and perform Mangal Artik and be engaged in these different activities. Yeah. And then we are thinking, oh, I have to make arrangements for the breakfast prasadam later. So put some arrangements are there, but it's all connected, connecting everything to Krishna. And wherever there's some Krishna Katha, we like to go there. Wherever there is some Krishna Kirtan, we like to be there. Wherever there is places to go, oh, pilgrimage. One of the acharyas, I'm trying to think whether it was, yeah, ah, uh, he stated that sometimes even devotees are so fixed in service that they take going to the holy places as a disturbance practically. Uh, mm. Although that if we go again, it's a whole science. Who was Narottam Das? I think it's Narottam. Thank you, Krishna. As Narottam Das is saying like that, the one who's actually engaged in service 24 hours a day in full absorption takes it as a bit of a disturbance. Why? Because you've got to go and get a conveyance. You've got to go there, especially here in India also, but you've got to go on a journey across the other side of the world. And then there's so much chaos, and then there's modernization of the holy dams, there's all this. But the devotees are so encouraged that, yes, let me go to the holy dams. Why? With one pointed attention. Tasmarikena manasa bhagavan satpatampati shrotavnikirtidabjaya puja sunichida. With one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, worship, and remember the Supreme Lord. So that's the mood of the devotee. They're not going to the holy place just for sightseeing and for shopping. That may be that you may go to a nice place, you may do a little shopping, but that's not your real purpose. We're going there not like the cows and the asses simply to take a bath, but we're going there to inquire to and, and associate with those persons who are very much interested in this process of Panchanga Bhakti, the activities of pure devotional service that can take us to the perfection of our human form of life, and we can reinstate ourselves in the eternal service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That loyum, that greed, is what propels the devotees through thick and thin, through up and down, through all uh, the challenges in life. So, uh, going to these holy places then, again, it requires great vigilance. And Srila Prabhupada said that to us. So don't just simply run to Radhakund. I was reading just the other day on that subject matter how Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was so strict that this is not our business. We have to remain very humble. We're not thinking, oh, I'm advanced now. I can go and sit at Radhakund and I just hear from the Babajis and fly high in the sky like that. No, he was very strict. That when he was asked to speak there, he only spoke from um, I think it was the Sri Upanishad, but he wasn't speaking from 10th canto Rasa Leela. This is for the very advanced personalities, but um, we're not presenting ourselves in that way. That's another whole subject matter. The mind goes there. So I'm thinking maybe there's something we can open up. I'm talking a little bit and okay. And this the mind to be under control is very important. There's one verse also in the second chapter, 266, I think it is. Nasti bhuti na yuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavana natasya ashantasya kutasukam. Person who's not in transcendental consciousness or Krishna consciousness can neither have a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there's no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? So I find that to be such a wonderful verse because it's we want happiness. Prabhupada repeatedly makes that point that that's because we are anandamaya, we are blissful by nature. We search for bliss. We can't help it. People, everyone and anyone in any species of life, whoever and wherever we are, we're searching for happiness, for pleasure, because we're pleasure seeking. We are by nature eternally blissful. So we want to find where's that bliss. So we're searching like that. And how and Bhagavad Gita gives us these verses which explains how can you be happy if you're not peaceful? And if you look at that carefully, it's a fact. If you're not peaceful, you can't be happy. So how can you become peaceful? Then you have to have a controlled mind. Because if you don't have a controlled mind, you'll be all over the place, and you'll be driven by that uncontrolled mind, and you'll have no. So it all comes from spiritual consciousness. And it's not an artificial imposition on the mind, but rather it's the natural constitutional position of the living entity to be engaged in service. Again, when we look carefully, we'll find that is the nature of every living being. Even a lion and lion, they have some affection for their children, and they like to serve them. They lick them and give them food and all the rest of it. Uh, So to give service, if you have $1 billion, it used to be a million, but now it's a billion, you have to say to make any impact, $1 billion. But if you don't have anyone to share it with, then you will be very miserable and very unhappy. You have to find other living entities to share, to serve. So that actually brings the pleasure. Pardon me. An example Prabhupada gave was a person who has no family takes a dog and the dog is there. And Maya's trick says, okay, you can be the master of your dog, but actually you're the servant of your dog if you actually look at what's actually going on. So much so in the modern time, you have to go around with a bag and pick up the dog still, but you still think you're the master, which is quite amazing. But so it is. That's how powerful Maya is. But what we see is that we want pleasure and we gain pleasure through service. But serving our dog, yes, certainly nothing against the dogs. That's another whole subject. Even great devotees, some great devotees had dog. Um, uh, yeah, Chaitanya Lila, like that pastime is there. So the dog is still a living entity within that dog, and the mercy can be there for everyone. But the uh, service factor is is there, and we've also the example of an old lady, for example, may have a dog, but may also have a little bird in a cage. And when you buy a little bell and put it in the cage, and the bird pops it, and you think, oh, how cute! And the little bird's pecking at the little bell, and it makes a nice little noise, and the bird thinks it's a great idea to bang on this little bell. But see what's happening. He sparsha. Now, what is that verse? Is a nice verse. What is the value of a prolonged duration of life, which is then experienced by many years in this world? Better a moment's full consciousness, because that gives one the start in searching after one's supreme interest. Uh, so we don't see that this service of dog, this service of little bird, that service of children, that service of husband or wife, that service in the material world brings pleasure, but it is a drop of pleasure in the desert of the material existence. So we find that's the case. So for the materialist, that drives them on and on and on and on, and there's no end to it. And for the devotee, we see, yes, these things are giving little pleasure, but that is not giving full pleasure. I'm hearing that there's a higher pleasure, that service to the Supreme Lord. So gradually through this process of devotional service, we transfer our attention to the activities of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as we do that in a correct way, we'll be able to also, if you're a family person, especially, it's 99.9% will be family members at different stages, at least in their life, if not all of their life, then they will also be able to engage in the Lord's service and in that way they will be served. We'll provide suitable arrangements for clothing and eating and shelter, house, and all of those things can be there. Things for the children, it can all be there, but it's all connected through this process of devotional service to the highest service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That will bring satisfaction to all persons. So people say, oh, you're only interested in your selfish interest. You want that kind of selfish interest. I have my selfish interest. I'm a materialist. You have it through what you call Hare Krishna, and you're doing the same stuff as that. It's just yours. That's your kind of selfishness to do it that way. I do it this way. But they don't see that there's a vast chasm of difference between the activities, because the activities of the devotee are not selfish. They're in the self-interest of the devotee. But there's a difference between self-interest and selfishness. Because when these activities are performed, they're in our self-interest. Yes, certainly, but it's not selfish, because part of that activity is to render service to all the other conditioned souls, to try and give them the opportunity for such consciousness, to to come out of their suffering condition and to create a harmonious world where there's cooperation, where there's understanding, and instead of conflict and competition, there's surrender and loving exchange. So that is what the devotees have to offer. So this path of controlling the mind, we have to assure the mind that, hey, there's a higher taste over here. The taste for sense objects may still remain, but ceasing those engagements by experiencing the higher taste of devotional service, you'll actually be happier. And I don't want to hear your response to that, my dear mind. That's what we're doing. Why? Because above you, my dear mind, there is the intelligence. And with guidance from the pure spirit soul, which is being guided by the representative called His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who's been guided by all the previous acharyas all the way to the Supreme Lord, Supreme Source. Abandon all this crazy stuff and just take this process, and you'll find that all the way down the line, it will all be harmonious and it will all be satisfying. But, the mind's saying, but. No, no, no attention to the mind. Reset. That is one of our seminars. We use that process to reset. It's just like the computer button. You press the reset button and you reset the computer. So the mind is like a mad dog. It's everywhere, going here and going there. So press the reset button. But. Press the reset, and just keep resetting back to the reality as distinguished from the illusion, and then we will make steady progress. And we may run into the proverbial brick wall every so often. So what? Just just reset. Press the reset button, get back on, and don't stop. Continue the process of devotional service, and be be appreciative uh, of what Krishna has offered and what Krishna is giving and how he's protecting us in so many ways, and opportunities that are offered to us to come to this stage of Krishna consciousness. So I'm going to finish there. I have no idea what time it is, but I do find it tricky when I'm looking at computers. When I look up here, all I can see is my own ugly face, but that's unfortunate. But if where's the time? Time to 8:21. Okay, so we can 5 minutes maybe if we have. If anyone has any reflection or a question, but if you have some little reflection of anything that sticks with you from our discussion this morning, and my apologies to everyone if I've um, my mind has been all over the place.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandot Pranam. This is
Ha-
Tushta Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
This is a very nice class mentioning the broad scaling of this mind, how to control and giving so much of references. But the central point, what I understand, to keep the mind in proper order, you need to keep the body, as you mentioned, keep the body in proper condition.
Mm,
Stimulate the mind with a proper stimulation is required for the mind. and one
Proper,
should be proper
proper what?
stimulus to the
Oh,
mind.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
and one should be properly situated in the social order. And the last is sadhana. The four things are so important. We practically think and analyze the thing. It's so important to control the mind. Definitely that helps us to direct the mind, as you said in the last uh, minute, the resetting button. So
Uh-huh.
when we chant, our mind is everywhere. As you said, mind is everywhere, but if we keep pressing the resetting button, it comes back again. So that is a very good practice in our chanting in every morning. It's so important.
Mm.
The nature of the mind cannot be controlled so easily, but we can reset it to come to
Yeah,
the certain
and
stage.
Prabhu, please, yeah, thank you. That's fabulous reflection. I really appreciate that. And again, to re-emphasize that point, it's not unexpected of the mind. So sometimes we can feel overwhelmed and think, "Oh, my mind's out of control." Hey, come on, that's expected. So, when it comes, but again, just press the reset button and come back into the Krishna consciousness. It's not unexpected because the mind does exist. It's there, but when it runs, yeah. So, but lovely reflection, Prabhu. Continue if you wish to, please. If there's anything there that you want to.
So those are the points that just attracted me. So nice, so practical. In every day, we need to set this way so that mind can be slowly and steadily can be controlled. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Good point. I love the way you managed to reflect them back with your own practical application of it. So it makes I get the benefit from hearing it from you like that. Nice.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Okay. So if anyone else has anything, please feel free.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna. This is Abhay Charan Das speaking.
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna.
Vacharan.
Prabhuji, you have very nicely told, but ultimately one thing comes back. I mean, the mind, unless the mind is connected to the Lord, we have to know that unless it is connected to the Lord, there is no chance of having a permanent peace of mind.
Mm,
Because uh, because without a mind which is steady, and a mind can become steady when it is connected to the Lord. I think it is 266, it is told very clearly that when a mind is when a mind is not connected to the Lord, it cannot have, I mean, before that, unless his intelligence is connected to the Lord, he cannot have a steady mind. And
yes.
without a steady mind, there cannot be peace, because the mind is, as you have told, is roaming everywhere. And unless we understand that it is to be utilized for the service of the Lord, and that means Lord is the enjoyer, and we are here to serve Him. That the basic thing. Unless we serve the Lord, there cannot be any chance of peace of mind,
Yes.
because it will roam everywhere. As you have told, it is moving everywhere. And you have mentioned initially it started with 634, where you told that by Arjuna was told by practice and renunciation. And renunciation practice, as you have told, by setting the reset button, very nicely example you have given, and who has also very told mentioned that. So we have to reset the button, but the understanding must be there that Lord is the enjoyer, and unless our mind, and we are the servitor, unless that idea comes in our mind, I mean, we have to, by all our effort is to be made in such a way that we are the servitor. Otherwise, we will serve the Maya. If we don't serve the Krishna, we will serve the Maya. You have given the
Mm,
example of a dog. The dog owner thinks that the he is the master of the dog, but he is really servitor of the Lord. He is the servitor of the dog. So
yeah.
there's no point unless that mindset comes that unless we serve the Lord, we are only serving Maya. And that is the critical point. And very nicely you have explained. Thank you very much. I think
Yeah.
that we have to serve the Lord only, and only that is the only way to peace.
Mm,
Otherwise, the mind will roam here and there, and we will get involved. one after another, and they will only temporary happiness, but only Maya's happiness. It's not a peace of mind, the real sense. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Yes, it brings nice reflection. Thank you. As you're reflecting that back, it brings again that idea that back to Vinod Thakur explains that at different stages in our life, I just something that comes to mind. We went to India back in the 19, when was that? 94, I think. My wife and I went, and she gives this example, and I've got many others, but this example, when we went there, she said for a few weeks it was so nice to be kind of quote unquote free, being in the Dham and being able to not have any specific service and just be there. But then she said after 2 weeks or so, she really felt that I haven't got any real service. And again, that's Prabhupada said you shouldn't go to Vrindavan and sit there. You have to have service. Otherwise, you should just go for a short period and leave quite quickly because the mind will be everywhere. So that Bhakti Vinod's, and then no, I'll just finish that part of the story, but she then took up service at the Gurukul there, and that was the beginning of her teaching career, you could say, teach life as a devotee as a teacher. And then she felt very inspired. So again, back to Vinod's statement that we have to be properly situated. We have to be socially properly engaged in activity. All those aspects have to be in place unless we're Paramahamsa, but which we're not at all. So yeah, the services and as we go through life, my experience is that there's different stages. And I'm listening, Keshava Swami, Swami Bhagavan Keshava Swami gives that when he talks about the life quakes. So there's earthquakes which come unexpectedly. And he was saying, I was listening to it yesterday, actually, again, that different, another lecture that he gave, same kind of subject. There's life quakes, and he was saying between 5 and 10, he reckoned that's what the research shows. It may be the death of someone, it may be severe illness, it may be maybe so many things that happen unexpectedly, and we're really challenged to reorganize our life in a certain way. You may have a financial collapse, you may have so many circumstances, a war, a pestilence, a disease, and then we're really challenged. So again, we have to reflect and try to make sure that we're back on track. My sadhana is still going. My association of devotees is going well. Economically, I'm okay in whatever circumstance I'm in. Make sure that that's all right. My health is being maintained to continue on the process. So yeah. So, but it does alter that, and that's the, what would you say, the central point is it, everything around Krishna, that process of coming close to Krishna, coming closer to Krishna, and throughout our lives, that's where we're going. That's the path back to Krishna. So thanks for that. So I think we're over time.
Yes. If there is no other person, if anybody has any other reflection, he can make. Otherwise, you can conclude the class. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we can conclude there. Grantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha
Patarvescha,
kripa sindhubhyevacha
Kripasindhuvescha,
patitanam
Patitanam,
pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo,
वैष्णवेभ्यो
vaishnavebhyo
नमो
namo
नमः।
Vaishnavebhyo
namo
Namo Namaha.
anantakoti
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव
vaishnavebhyo
वृंद की
namo
जय।
namo.
Vaishnava.
His Grace Jaya
Jai
Sila
Srila
Prabhu
Prabhupada
ki
ki
जय
Srila Prabhupada
Prabhupada
ki
Ki Jai.
जय।
Jai.
Jai
Gaur
Hari Hari.
Premanande.
हरि बोल।
Hare
All
Krishna.
devotees, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Press the reset button. Hare Krishna.
Yes, yes.
Hare Hare.